Moving forward, but involving the great state of Ohio, my home state. Number 3, Ohio State on the road as 19.5-point favorites at the Purdue Boilermakers. Your Purdue Boilermakers, your alma mater. This game carries an over-under of 49.5 points, and it kicks off at noon Eastern on Peacock. So I won't be watching the game, very sadly. I tried to sign up for a free trial, but they axed that in the fall. So is what it is. I guess I'll just catch up on the highlights later. Look, it's expected to be windier in West Lafayette than it is in Cincinnati. But again, keep an eye on that. No one knows honestly, till even the day of sometimes. And there is a potential for rain, of course, as this big front sweeps through the central and eastern U.S. Ohio State running back Trevion Henderson. He missed last week. He is expected back this week. And boy, did the Buckeyes miss him. They had some trouble running the football against Maryland. And Maryland has been pretty solid defending the rush this year, but in my estimation, it was kind of inexcusable in that they really could have used the explosiveness of Trevion Henderson. If he doesn't go, Chip Trainum's the main guy. We saw a little bit of Mayan Williams as the game went on. That was later on. He removed somebody from the football field, somebody's cleats from the football field on an absolute man run. That was pretty funny to watch. But look, the issue I have with Kyle McCord right now is that he's staring down his pass rush and he's missing open guys. There's opportunities when he gets the football of guys finding space, maybe 10, 12, maybe even 8 yards past the line of scrimmage, but he's too busy looking at who's coming at him and looking at his line that he's missing these guys. That's something previous Ohio State quarterbacks have not done. If he's not chucking it up and downfield to Marvin Harrison Jr., there's not really much to get excited about on this offense. And who would have thought that we'd have been talking about this Ohio State offense? I think that's inexcusable for the amount of weapons that they have in the backfield out wide. Cade Stover is even one of the better pass-catching tight ends in the country. So the offensive line, I understand why he's looking at the rush because the offensive line has been very good this year, particularly with tackles. The San Diego State transfer, Josh Simmons, he's been particularly terrible, I think. No confidence in the left tackle there. Defensively, Ohio State generates pressure with Jack Sawyer and JTT, but they're not finishing with sacks. They're getting to the quarterback and around the quarterback, but they're not bringing the quarterback down very often and causing a lot of havoc. On the other side, Devin Mockabee, explosive running back for Purdue. He's very effective when he plays and when they give him the ball, but he has at least one fumble in 4 of 6 games this season. He had 3 against Syracuse. Between him and Hudson Card, they had 7 combined fumbles in that game. Look, if Purdue turns the ball over, that's it. They're toast. That it's going to be an Ohio State runaway if they're not going to be able to take care of the football. Hudson Card, the experience has been something. He has 11 turnover-worthy plays and 10 drops from his receiving core, so perhaps it's a little bit of give and take with him, but he is the second most pressured quarterback in the Big Ten, and that's certainly not going to change on Saturday. He's also the second most blitzed quarterback in the Big Ten. He has 7 turnover-worthy throws when he's blitzed, which is the most nationally, and he's going up against Jim Knowles, a.k.a. Collegiate Dr. Heat, who loves to bring exotic blitzes and fronts. You can expect more of that on Saturday. I would hope Ohio State doesn't look ahead, given their not-so-distant history at Ross-Ade Stadium, but Penn State's on tap, so who knows?
Yeah, Brett, I'm going to get to that in a second. I'm going back to what you said about Peacock. So I've had Peacock since really it came out. I'm a big Leicester City supporter from the English Premier League, or formerly the Premier League. The one good thing about Leicester being relegated, and I do mean the only good thing, was I was like, hey, at least I can cancel my Peacock subscription. Well, then we got all these college football games on there now, so I'm like, well, I guess I'm getting Peacock back, and I'm paying $250 to watch Leicester because their games, unless they're on ESPN Plus, aren't on TV in the U.S. So it's been a wreck for me trying to keep up with everything, all the services. But hey, I have Peacock. I'll be watching this game because, like you said, Brett, I call this the Kelley Ford Bowl. By now, you said it. Everyone knows. Undergrad degree from Purdue. Boilers are my number 2 squad. Ohio State has always been my number 1. It goes back to before I can even remember. People say, well, why didn't you go to Ohio State? Well, I wasn't going to play football or watch college football. I was going to get a degree, right? And so in-state, Purdue, engineering, it made sense. The average fan, Brett, you touched on this, might think it's worked out pretty well for me, being an Ohio State fan. You know, oh, you're no trouble with Purdue ever. The truth is the Boilers have given the Buckeyes fits recently, especially in West Lafayette. Purdue's won 3 of the last 4 and 5 out of the last 8 against Ohio State in Ross-Ade. That includes 2011, Brett, when I was a freshman. I was pledging a fraternity. I was decked out in Ohio State gear in the Purdue student section. I wasn't going to let it change me. And then Purdue won the game. They rushed the field. I put my head down. I walked back to my dorm. Next time I went to the house was not a good experience for me. But hey, long term, I think we gained some respect. Short term, it was a brutal time to be Kelley Ford at Purdue. That's for sure. But basically what I'm saying, Brett, is what you said. The Buckeyes better not be looking ahead to Penn State next week. They'd be forgiven because of how big that game is. But you can't overlook the Boilermakers at Ross-Ade given the history here. Ohio State has one of the best resumes in the country. They're ranked number 3 in my most deserving metric. Only a 21% chance the average top 25 team would be 5-0 against that schedule. That's number 3 nationally. Ohio State's outscoring its opponents by 11.5 points per game, more than would be expected of the average top 25 team against their schedule. That's number 5 nationally. So Ohio State's done a great job to this point building a resume. I have Ohio State minus 23 in this game. It's a 95% win expectancy. For as good as Ohio State's resume is, Brett, from a ordinal rank perspective, the Buckeyes have been even better in the power rating side. They grade out number 1 overall for the 4th straight week. Ohio State boasts the number 6 defense and the number 10 offense, although it must be said, you touched on this, that's the lowest the offense has ranked all season after starting the year number 1. They quickly lost that standing to USC, but they've been dropping consistently in the weeks that have followed. For Purdue, a 2-4 record disappointing because my preseason realistic expectations projected closer to 3-3 at this point. The Boilers have fallen almost 1.5 points in the power ratings as both the number 68 offense and number 71 defense have fallen double-digit spots now since the preseason. Catching Ohio State and Michigan out of the East is brutal for Purdue. Their chances to go bowling are down from 39% in the preseason to just 16% currently. The West is a 2-team race between Wisconsin and Iowa, and while a win for Ohio State doesn't improve their standing in the East, when you have a 95% win expectancy, winning's not really going to help you based on the projections. A loss would be devastating for the Buckeyes. It would drop them to just a 14% chance to make it to Indy for the first time since 2020. Bottom line, I have Ohio State minus 23. It's 5% chance that the spoiler makers, as people affectionately call them, break the Buckeye hearts once again.
I don't know whether the time slot here helps or hurts Purdue. On one hand, is it noon or 11 a.m. over there? That's right near the border.
It's noon. We're still Eastern time here in West Lafayette.
Okay, it's noon. You think that hurts? Because to me, I would be more intimidated if it were a night environment. But at the same time, a lot of times those noon kickoffs can be sleepy, and favorites can stumble if it's not that juiced.
I think night in Ross-Ade. I mean, think about 2018. It was at night. Prior to that, it was during the day because prior to that, Ross-Ade didn't have lights, so there weren't night games there. Like when I'm talking about these other upsets that Purdue's had over Ohio State. But the 2018 one, kind of the most classic, the most recent one, was at night. Rondale Moore, of course, goes off. I'll never forget watching that game. I'm sitting here in the basement like, dang, what is happening to Ohio State? And my dad's cheering because he's rooting for Purdue right next to me, and I'm like, you need to go away. So anyway, I think it hurts Purdue's chances, but I hear your point. Ohio State could be a little sleepier at noon. I think Purdue might be too, though. We'll see.
Fair. Okay. Look, I'm hoping for a Buckeye cover here for one reason, and it's definitely not the reason everybody's staring at my Ezekiel Elliott jersey is thinking, this is so that I can come back and bet Penn State next week. If Ohio State loses, that line's going to be a lot different. I'm worried about this Buckeye team playing Penn State and Michigan this year. I don't think they beat either. So give me a good win, a good cover here, and I'll come back and bet the points of Penn State. Now, what you just said about Ross-Ade Stadium, maybe this knocks down my confidence a little bit on this, but I actually do have a bet in this game, and it's Purdue first half plus 10.5. It's noon, like I said, sleepy, road game. Ohio State started slow a number of times this year, most recently just last week against Maryland. That was bad. Final score is not indicative of how that game went. Maryland controlled the game for the first 2.5 quarters. It was dead even for 3 quarters, and Ohio State talent won out. Look, I don't trust Ohio State's offense to fully steamroll teams. I really don't. Purdue's got enough explosive potential in their offense to maybe even get ahead in that first half, but this is I think they're going to eventually grind them down and win out with talent. I don't know that Ohio State's really in danger to lose this game, but the way that they've come out in games, the concerns that I have about their offense, even with Trey Henderson back, Purdue first half plus 10.5. That's the bet that I have on this game.